Um, yeah, so I wanted to just speak out loud about um, some things that I've been thinking about recently. And one of them is about being a black girl and what is that like? Um, what does it mean? And how do I understand myself? I'm just a little kind of confused if I'm doing it right. And I know that sounds like crazy because how could I be wrong, you know? Because that would suggest that there's a way to be. And I don't think I'm saying that that's true. But yeah, I still feel a, a deficiency of some kind in the way that I'm practicing my personhood. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just wanted to think about it. And I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but I really struggle sometimes to understand how I feel about something or to unpack something if I don't have the opportunity to speak about it. When I was writing my university dissertation, it really was the culmination of all these conversations I was having with people like my supervisor and my friends, my family, and strangers. Like I would honestly, I really embodied my writing, and I was constantly having conversation about it, and that's ultimately what helped me write it and formulate things. And so I feel like that is what is most natural to me when it comes to trying to understand myself is through conversation. um and even though I'm speaking to myself technically doing this, um it's still a kind of conversation because once I externalize it, my thoughts, I'm almost like speaking to myself in a way. Yeah. Um, and there's just a lot on my mind at the minute that I need to do that with, but I don't feel that I'm able to um, speak to others. Maybe I don't know. Uh, I don't feel ready to speak to another person because in this case of my identity, it's harder for somebody else to understand if you've not at least made an effort yourself to understand. So if you're not bored already, because I'm speaking so slowly, um, yeah, that's kind of what I want to talk about. I guess this all began for me when I moved away for university, and I moved somewhere that was not as diverse as where I've grown up and gone to school. And yeah, I just noticed that I was being seen and treated differently. Um, Not in a explicit way, but kind of just subtle. And it really kind of reminded me why it's so important to have people around you who are like you. Because you're never questioned, and you're always welcome. And yeah, I think that like growing up, whether that was in school or whether that was like in my family or whether that was with friends, like it was, I think I maybe separated any kind of racial element from things. And I think that was to a fault maybe, because it was I wasn't acknowledging that kind of the importance of that side of myself. And I think I associated my grievances with my own culture, um, with like my race, and that's really hard to say because I know how that might be perceived and understood, like a sort of self-hating, but it wasn't. But it's not like that because it's more complex. It's when you're as a young person, very normally, you're insecure. And I think that as a black girl, there's even more so a, intersection of insecurities that are so like, yeah, they're so structural, it's so much complex than, maybe the experience of being a white girl, young white girl who's experiencing the insecurities of growing up in this world. So I don't know. I think that in my insecurity, my race did play a part in that. And that's not just a inner outward thing, but that is a sort of like societally imposed thing too. And it's not just, yeah, like insecurities which are, they manifest just from within. I think it was a combination of, yeah, of both, like from an external element and an internal element. And so I think like having kind of been thinking about that, and my time being away from like a more multicultural city, I yeah, I've been just been realizing more and more why I am so, yeah, why I'm so like longing for this rootedness. And at the minute I'm very much looking for that in my like culture and my like race, which is something that maybe I sort of peripheralized, no, peripheralized, is that a word? Like just, yeah, sort of something I marginalized within myself um before. And I don't know, I feel really like kind of ashamed to be saying these things, but surely I'm not the only one who's felt these things. Like it's almost like a sort of like rediscovery um, or yeah, or myself and my culture. But in that, I feel like I'm doing it in a really flawed way, because at the minute, I think I'm doing it through these kind of avenues of culture that are very easy to make superficial, like like in like entertainment, like in yeah, um like in music and in maybe black writing, um, and I'm like criticizing myself for maybe like looking for self identity in these like markers of black culture. Whereas when I think about like what makes me me, um, and what makes me like Somali is is all the things in between. It's the very like mundane experience. It's like just the things that like the habits that have been like handed like passed over to me have been I've been influenced by having grown up in that culture, and you kind of can't impose those things on yourself. um, but then again, I feel like maybe I'm being too critical, because if I try and engross myself in these things, then something authentic will come out of it. And yeah, yeah, and like the even though that there may be some things that are less authentic, um, there will always be like an unconscious part of my brain which just allows for like that culture to be breathed into me. Um, I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, if we go through the world with a like an unconscious brain and then a conscious brain, and in the conscious brain is like kind of where we like are we're thinking about those insecurities, and that's where that it lives and is happening. And then our unconscious brain is where we just like are who we are. You know, like when you're just like hanging out with friends, or when you're with family, and you're not even thinking about things, you're just existing, and you're so like you're not perceiving yourself at all. I think that's the kind of like authentic living that I'm trying to like speak about. And I feel that part of myself is lacking in um in like an embracing of my black identity. um yeah, I don't know, I don't know if that makes sense. um I'd like to think there's somebody out there will be able to say it does and that they relate, because it would make me feel so much better. Um, yeah, about myself.